Hello everyone and welcome to a new tutorial. Today we're going to be recreating the Invoke system from Dota 2. This system invokes a spell using the orb elements you have currently equipped, and it also assigns a key code to them in relation to the other abilities you already have invoked. You can have as many orb elements and abilities as you want. It is very simple to add them once you have the building blocks of the system. Without any further ado, let's jump right into
exalt! Chaos Meteor!
Oh, come on! Here we are in a brand new project. My project folder contains my URP settings and the scene. My scene has a camera, directional light, ground plane, and a player capsule. Let's start by doing our visuals. Create a new particle system called Orb. I'm going to move it here so I can see it a bit better. Uncheck shape so that they all spawn at the center. Start speed to 0. Now we have an orb, but I want to make it look a bit better, so set its duration and lifetime to 1 second. Change its color. I will set mine to orange, like Invoker's fire orb called Exort. You can see this black shade around it and it looks pretty bad. If you go to game view, it looks even worse. You can see the borders of it. So I'm going to increase the simulation speed to 5, then scroll down to render settings and change its material. I will choose the default particle system that comes with URP. It looks good, but it could be better. Change its sort mode to all this in front and enable color over lifetime, then make it fade out. You will notice now that it is brighter on the inside. Looks pretty good, right? Last thing we will do to this particle system is enable size over lifetime and choose a curve going up. Duplicate the orb game object and call this one Boom. Set its start size to something bigger than your orb and disable looping. Under emission settings, set its rate over time to 0 and add a burst of 3 particles. Change its size over time to a curve going down. It looks very solid, so I will make it a bit more transparent by lowering the burst of particles from 3 to 1. And also lowering the alpha value of the start color to something like, I think 150 is fine. Make the boom a child of our orb and voila! We have our orb and a spawn effect. Add a new C# script to the orb called Invoke Orb and another script, this one to your player game object, and call it Invoke. Okay, create a new empty game object as a child of your player game object and call it Orb Holder. As its name suggests, this will hold all our orbs so that we have less crowded hierarchy. And also make them spin in unison. You can position this anywhere you want. Maybe you want the orbs to circle around the player's head, or maybe the hand, or maybe the staff. I don't know, these are just ideas. Okay, so create yet another empty game object called Abilities. I'm going to create one ability for now, so create yet another game object and call this one Sunstrike. Add a new C# script called Invoke Ability. Let me just create a new folder to store our scripts and prefabs. Duplicate the orb 2 more times and name them whatever you want. I will stick to Invoker element names. So the fire one will be Exort. Drag it to your project folder to create a prefab. Second element is ice, named Quas. Change their color to a light bluish. Remember the boom has to have a different alpha value. In my case, I set it to 150. Third and last element is the storm element called Wex. I will quickly change its color to a light purple and we're pretty much done with our setup. Open up the Invoke script using your programming software of choice and let's begin writing some code. Okay, this is going to be a bit long. I will try to keep it short and explain it as best as I can. Let's do our variables first. Add a string called current combo. You can make this an exposed variable by adding serialized field above it if you want. To keep things nice and neat, I will do a header that reads orb settings. Then below it, I will add a public integer called orb amount, 2 new public floats called orb rotation speed and orb position distance, a transform called orb holder, and make this an exposed variable by adding serialized field above it. We will need 2 lists of type game object. One to reference the orb prefabs and another to keep tabs on the orbs we have currently equipped. Expose the orb prefabs in the inspector so we can assign them later on. Great! Add a space to separate our sections and call this one Ability Settings. First variable on this section will be an integer called Ability Amount. Below it, create a keycode array called Ability Keys. Just like we did with our orbs, create two lists of type Invoke ability to hold the abilities we have currently invoked as well as the reference to the abilities we can invoke. Nicely done. That is all for our variables. Inside start, we need to assign an ability ID to each one of our abilities. We will do this by running a for each loop. Before we can continue, go to your Invoke ability script and add a public string array called combo, a public integer called ability ID, and a keycode array called ability keys. Head back to our Invoke script, and inside this loop we will pass on the ability keys to each ability as well as give them an ability ID. However, we are giving them an ID of 0 to all the abilities. We can change this by simply adding 1 to every loop. Now each ability has its own ID. Done with start. Moving on to update. I'm going to collapse this real quick so we have more space to play around. Here we will rotate our orb holder transform on the y-axis using the orb rotation variable. If we press Q, then we have to create the quasi ice element, right? So create a new function called setOrb that takes in a parameter of type integer, then add it up here. We will pass on 0. Copy and paste this 2 more times. Second one will be the W key and pass on a value of 1. Third one will be E and pass on a value of 2. Click save, and let's go back to Unity real quick so I can show you how we are assigning the orb IDs. Okay, in your Invoke script here, you should be able to see the orb prefabs that is currently of size 0. Let's change this to 3 and add the prefabs we created earlier, Quas, Wex, and Exhort. This number you see next to the element will be the orb ID. Cool. Back in our script, we need to create a new function called Invoke ability. Inside update, copy this and change its key to R because in the legacy keys, R is the invoke key. And you can of course change this later on to whatever you want. We are done with updates, so just collapse this. Let's do the setOrb first. In here we have to remove the orb if we have more than the amount we have set to avoid having an endless amount of orbs equipped. Create a temporary variable of type integer to hold the ID of the orb we have to remove, which is going to be the last orb inside our orbs equipped list. Destroy the orb and also remove it from our list to avoid having a bunch of empty or null references inside our list. We have to add the orb now. Begin by checking if we have less than the orb amount. Instantiate the orb from our orbs prefabs and we will use the orb ID which we are passing over here. Remember? Make it a child of the orb holder to avoid crowding or hierarchy with orbs. Once we have spawned the orb, set its name to be the name of the prefab reference. This is basically removing the clone text that appears every time you instantiate a game object. This will make more sense in a minute. Open up your Invoke orb script and up here add a new public integer called orb ID as well as a public vector3 called position inside circle. Back in our main script, we will access the Invoke orb script and assign the orb ID to the orb we have just created. After that, we have to insert this orb into our list of orbs equipped. We use insert rather than add because insert puts them anywhere we want inside the list and pushes down every other object inside the list, as opposed to add, which simply adds it at the very end of the list. 0 will insert it at the first and push everything down. Okay, last but not least, we have to assign its position relative to all the other orbs that we have already summoned. We do this by doing a loop for each equipped orb, then checking if this orb exists. Now we calculate the angle of 360 degrees divided by the amount of orbs we have equipped and convert this to a direction using vector3.forward. We multiply this by the orb position distance so that we have some control over how far they will be. Lastly, we access the Invoke orb script and pass on this information so we can use it later. Let's do Invoke ability now. We will need a new function below this of type string. This means we will always have to return a value of type string inside this function. As of right now, we are returning nothing, so it gives you an error. If we return current combo, the error will be gone. Strings are variable types of text, so you can write whatever you want in them. We will use this to hold on to the current combination of orbs. Create a new list of type string, then run a for each loop for every orb equipped and add the orb name. Remember when we set the orb name to be the prefabs orb name up here? We did this to remove the clone part of the game object so that we have a clean list down here. We turn this list into a sentence by using string.join. We can add whatever text we want in between each orb name. I will use a dash. If we have 3 exort orbs equipped, this will print out exort dash exort dash exort. Awesome. Now we can assign the current combo to this new string function we created. Create yet another function of type invoke ability called getAbilityInvoked. Just like the above function, we need to always return something. Create a temporary variable of type invoke ability that equals to null, then down here just return this new variable. Now we have to assign it, otherwise we will always return a null reference, right? We assign this new ability by doing a for each loop through all our abilities available. Before we continue in here, we have to go to our invoke ability script. In here, add a new public function of type boolean that takes in a parameter of type string called current combo. Check the string array of this ability, and if it contains, actually you have to add using system.link to use contain. Okay, so if it contains the current combo, we return this to true. If it doesn't contain the combo, we return false. Save this and let's head back to our invoke script. In here we call this new function inside our if statement and assign the new ability to be this ability. Awesome, all done with that. Now we go back up here and we can create a temporary variable of type invoke ability and call this new function to assign it. Now that we have these two values, we have to use them to assign the ability. We check if the new ability is not equals to null, which basically means that we actually do have an ability to equip. Inside here we do another check to see if the abilities we currently have are more or equals to the ability amount, in which case we do yet another check. This time to either remove the new ability from our invoke abilities, no matter where it is on the list, or remove the last ability in the list and disable its game object. Outside here we don't do any checks because if we have an ability we always have to add it to our list, so enable its game object and insert it as the first ability in the list, which will push every other ability down the list. Next, we have to reassign the key codes for each ability we have currently invoked. To do this, we go to our invoke ability script and I will remove the start function since we will not use it. Add a new public function called update key codes that takes in a parameter of type invoke, which is our main script. Go up here and add a new integer called invoke key position, then inside our update key code function we set this integer to be the index of this ability. We actually gotta go and make this list public so that we can access it. Hit save and yep, okay, cool. Inside update we check if we have pressed the right ability key and run your ability code. Of course, I'm not going to show you how to program every single invoker ability. That would make this video about 5 hours long, maybe even more. Something that you can do to keep things nice and neatly is go down here and create a new function called whatever you wanted and put your code here. For testing purposes, I will debug the name of this game object. Back inside our invoke script, we simply call the update key codes for every single ability and pass on this script. Last portion of code we have to write is the orb's movement. Add a few public floats called movement speed, height, height speed minimum, and height speed maximum, and one last float called height speed. Inside start, set the height speed to be a random value between the height speed minimum and maximum. Inside update, we create a new vector tree and set it to be the position inside circle which we assigned through code earlier. To make it move up and down, we use mathfsint using these variables which we can assign in the inspector later. Using this too, we can set the destination for our orb. This has to be local position because we are inside the orb holder game object, remember? One more thing we can do to have even more control over our orb's movement is giving it a spawn position. Go to your Invoke script and add a new transform called Orb Spawn Possession. Then go down to your set orb function, and after you spawn it, simply set its position to be the orb spawn position. Oof, okay, we're all done coding. Let's head back into Unity. Set the orb amount to be 3, rotation speed to 100, position distance to 1 unit. Assign the orb holder and duplicate it, call it orb spawn position, then move it anywhere you want your orbs to spawn, maybe at your player's hand or staff, I don't know. I will spawn mine above the player. We have already set the orb prefabs. Ability amount we will do too. And ability keys have to be the same amount as the ability amount, otherwise you won't be able to use some of your abilities. I will set the first key to be D, second key to be F, because these are the Invoker legacy keys. You can of course set them to whatever you want. Abilities invoked don't matter, you can just leave this empty. For abilities available, I only have one, so let me duplicate these 2 more times and rename them to Cold Snap and EMP. Drag them in here. Okay, great, all done with that. For the Invoke ability script, remember the ability ID as well as the ability keys are all being set through code, so it doesn't matter what value you put in here. They will eventually be changed in the code. Add a new combo. This is Sunstrike, so we only need one combo, which is Exhort, Exhort, Exhort. Same for the other two. Cold Snap is Quas, 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 and EMP is Wex, Wex, Wex. Select all of them and disable their game objects. Moving on to our orbs. I will group select them, and you don't have to play around with the orb ID or position inside circle because we set those through code, remember? Move speed we will do something very low to test it out. Height something very low as well. And height speed between 2 and 3. Let's hit play and test it out. Okay, let me expand this real quick so we can see the spells inside our list pop up. Let's do 3 Quas. You can see them spawn above the player, then move down to their designed positions inside the circle. Let me move the scene view to the side so we can see it a bit better. Let's increase their movement speed to 10. When we set the height min and max to the same value, all the orbs move up and down at the same speed, which looks a bit odd. That is why we randomize this value. You can also increase its height. Two is too much, they are clipping through the ground. You can also set their rotation speed over here. As well as the distance. You can have as many orbs as you want, and they will always be evenly placed around a circle. Okay, let's create the EMP, so that is 3 Wex. Then press R, and yep, it pops up here, and also its game object is now enabled. If we press D, it should print out its name. Nice. Let's invoke Sunstrike now. EMP got moved down and Sunstrike is first. So if I press D, we should get a Sunstrike here, and if you press F, you should get an EMP. Okay, awesome. It's all working as intended. To add a new ability, simply duplicate this and let's add Tornado. This one is supposed to be 2 Quas and 1 Wex, so naturally we should add 3 combo strings rather than just 1 like this. Lastly, just drag it into your abilities available and done. That is it for this tutorial. Now go add more orb elements and abilities. I don't know, go crazy with it. If you want these project files, become a Patreon and gain access to them as well as many other abilities we have recreated in the channel. Thanks to my Patreons for making these videos possible, and thank you for watching.